Hello and welcome to the romance track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin, and tonight we are talking about cinnamon roll romance. So before we get started, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Jamie.
Almost Johnny on the spot, or Jamie on the spot in this case. I'm Jamie Garner. I'm a professional author and editor. I write under several pen names, including one that I'm pulling out tonight. So there's a reason I signed up for this panel at the last minute. I write as Jamie Garner, Amelia Quantrill, and my new one, Temple Heart.
Very good. Don?
I'm Dehel. I write under the name D.S. Dehel. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay. All right.
I'm McKay, also write with my writing partner, Rachel Langella, and we write romance across all genres.
Very good. Jeannie.
And I'm Jeanne Adams. I write urban fantasy, paranormal romantic suspense, and urban fantasy. And I also write space adventure with my friend Nancy Northcott.
And I'm Gail Z. Martin. I write male romance, paranormal male romance as Morgan Bryce. And so, yeah, let's get into this. So let's start by defining cinnamon roll. What or who is a cinnamon roll? Jamie?
Oh, I mean, that sweet, ooey gooey, warm person that is just nice and just cozy to be with and just settle up to, and just like the person you just want to, you could just melt with, and they're going to take care of you, and you need to protect them, of course, because far be it that their unmatched purity be tainted by the cruel outside world, but so it's a wonderful thing to have something that just provides so much emotional warmth and also kind of stifles up those protective urges. Like a
Okay.
mama bear a little bit.
Dawn?
Well, what Jamie said, and I think it's they're kind of ubiquitous in a way. These are the nice guys you overlook, who take you by surprise when you least expect it by being there and being comforting. Um, they're in every mall everywhere, right? The sort of cinnamon roll guys who don't get their due. I'm glad to see they are.
Okay. All right.
And sometimes I think, in addition to what everybody else said, they're a little bit almost too good to be true. More pure is not the right word exactly, but that's kind of the idea that's behind it, that there's not all that meanness in them. They tend to always look for the good in other people. They see the good, not and kind of overlook the bad.
Okay. Jeannie?
Well, everybody's defined it really well. I would only add that these are the guys that you do take home to mama. These are the guys that are not out flashing and not out going, they're not trying to prove themselves. They're comfortable in their own skin. And, I love reading suspense and, the dashing hero as much as anyone. But sometimes that's so unrealistic. And it's so delightful to read what are now being called cinnamon roll romances, where it's the kind of guy that you would go, hey, you know what? Come home to Thanksgiving, meet mom and dad. And yes, as somebody who's 21st century out in the wild world going, why has this one not been snapped up yet? Right? You're going to have those questions, right? And that's part of the fun of the romance. But they are the ones, as both Ari and Don said, that maybe got overlooked until the right person comes along. And to me, those are they're almost like cozy romances where you go, yeah, that guy deserves a good person and that gal deserves a good guy. And so, yeah, it's fun.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with what everybody has said. I think that when I think of a cinnamon roll, I think of somebody who might be a little on the younger side, so they don't have a lot of miles under their belt. So there's maybe not naivete, but they are not the world weary, jaded trooper. And that brings a fresh perspective. Maybe that makes it easier for them to see the good in people or the opportunity or the positives in a situation. And I think that's also part of the cinnamon roll, is that this isn't a Pollyanna, but this is somebody with an overall optimistic slant on life who is going to try to see that the glass is half full and make the most of a bad situation. And that's a very different vibe than, you know, some of the bad boys and the tough guys and the rough ones that we often write about. Which leads me to, how are the tropes a little different, or are they, in cinnamon roll romance? I mean, these guys are not going to end up turning out to be an assassin. Uh, so they probably don't have, and I take that back. I just finished watching Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha, where the cinnamon roll guy did have much more of a dark past than anybody expected, but he still earned being a cinnamon roll if they had cinnamon rolls in South Korea. So how does the cinnamon roll main character affect the tropes that may be more common in cinnamon roll romance? Jamie?
That's a really good question. I think in a lot of ways, a lot of core tropes can remain much the same. I mean, honestly. However, the thing is, a lot of the things that I think a lot of the things, a lot of the darker tropes, you know, like, you know, touch her and you die and stuff like that, have to take on a much different aspect when dealing with the cinnamon roll. Like, you either can't use them or you need to invert them. Honestly, like, for example, what I am writing, you know, what I'm putting out is a cinnamon roll romance in the way that, like, it is a superheroine, and a supervillainess falling in love. So a lot of the darker tropes go off of the cinnamon roll heroine, who is, you know, you know, you know, sweet, down to earth, salt of the earth, Midwestern girl, you know, farm girl, and you put all the darkness on, you know, the other aspect of the relationship. So you could do all the dark stuff if you want. You just can't do it with that character. And even then, the lens of that changes because you have a moral beacon. You have someone that's sweet and good and innocent. Again, isn't even the right word, but we all know what we're talking about. We're talking about innocence and purity in this case. You have a whole different filter you have a different filter to lens it through, so you could play with that trope. It isn't taken the same way as it might when used a darker trope when used in another kind of romance.
Okay. Dawn?
I think that you can have some fun with some of the really common tropes. If you have a cinnamon roll, like, well, one bed, you know, forced proximity, where, you know, these are guys, girls, however you're writing it, that you can trust, you know, unlike, say, maybe your bad boys, you know. So how do you keep that heat, you know? And I think they can act as a really good foil for a heroine, you know, who who may not have thought she was a bad girl, but there's something about this lovely, innocent cinnamon roll guy who makes her cross boundaries that she might not have before. Not necessarily in a dark way, but in a fun way. So it's kind of hard sometimes to turn up the heat with a cinnamon roll guy. Like, they just sometimes don't get it, you know, and that's actually kind of fun to play with.
Okay. Ari?
Well, almost every cinnamon roll character that Rachel, Angela, and I have ever written ends up as part of a grumpy sunshine trope. Because those are just so much fun to play with. And it's like, the more cinnamon roll of a character you have on one side, the crankier and grumpier and nastier you can make your other guy. Like Jamie said, it's like you can really go with a very sarcastic, unhappy, miserable SOB character, and then it's so much fun to put them up against a cinnamon roll where it just brings them like, wait, what? You know, it's like, and when they find themselves falling in love with that, no matter what the trope is, it just, I think that it brings a lot of emotional satisfaction, at least it does to me when I'm reading it, to see the darker the character, or the more grumpy, sour, unhappy the character, to run up against this ray of sunshine that they just absolutely can't resist. So yeah, that's what I like about it.
Okay, Jeannie.
Yeah, I mean, what everybody said. I mean, I think you can really play with opposites attract, like Ari was saying. You can do the Beauty and the Beast kind of thing where the cinnamon roll is like, well, so you've got horns, doesn't everybody? I mean, don't we all have something, you know? And that real grumpy sunshine, that's such a fun one. But I think there's a lot of them that you can do because the cinnamon roll doesn't have to be, what's the Pillsbury Doughboy, doesn't have to be all that way. I mean, cinnamon can be spicy too, but it's a warm spice. It's a welcoming, I accept you, right? And so that whole sense of troubled versus easy, and there's so much fun to play with there that you can really do a lot of things in every different genre. And I think that even the like you were saying, Gail, with the Korean dramas, you can give somebody who's a cinnamon roll a pretty dark past, because sometimes people go through a lot of crap and they get to a zen place and they're like, just don't need to be that dark person anymore. And to me, that would be super fun to write. Is your recovering assassin, you're recovering mafioso. It's like, yep, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Not going to get upset by this. Yeah. I think that would be a blast to write.
Oh, I agree. And I think, on one hand, you can have a lot of fun with maybe not virginal tropes, but somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of experience, pardon me, and therefore hasn't gotten jaded and hasn't, gotten some rough edges. But it is fun, and I've seen it done well many times, where you've got somebody like Jeannie said, who wasn't always a cinnamon roll and has made the conscious effort to step back, change their lives, maybe move to a place where nobody knows them, and start over as somebody who is not as edgy and dark. And so whether that plays out as a secret that gets unveiled later, or just kind of the anchor for their compass to go, no, I've seen really bad. This is not really bad. We're just gonna take a deep breath and sit down.
It kind of reminds me of Ferdinand the Bull.
Yeah.
That kind of going to the trope that way of powerful person, strong person, capable person, just not bothered,
Mhm. Yeah. So if you were going to fantasy cast a cinnamon roll main character, is there, think of an actor or two who might be a good cinnamon roll. Jamie?
Okay, give me a need an it's hold on. I need the name. I need the name. Because I'm bad with actors' names, but I know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm looking real quick. I need I'm Johnny on the why am I always on the spot? Actors, who's the guy? Ella Purnell. Ella Purnell. Sorry, I'm gonna be talking entirely in women. You're just gonna have to roll with it. Ella Purnell is absolutely the big expressive eyes. And a matter of fact, honestly, if you look at the Fallout TV series that is on Amazon, she kind of plays that cinnamon roll that has to like go out in that world and just, okie dokie, get through it all. So absolutely, like, she would be like my ideal fan cast. If I wanted a cinnamon roll, I'd put her up.
Okay, Dawn?
So the person comes to mind first for me is Tom Hiddleston, especially when he was a little younger. I mean, cinnamon roll with a British accent, and apparently he's just that way in real life as well. Or if you wanted somebody younger, maybe Timothy Chalamet. He has that kind of youthful, angelic look to him anyway, sort of androgynous, which I think you could do a lot with a cinnamon roll character, maybe with a dark past as well.
Okay, Ari?
Oh, Pedro Pascal is the biggest cinnamon roll on the planet.
Yes.
I absolutely defy anybody to say that he isn't. I will go to the grave with that one.
Fair. Absolutely fair.
Aw.
Jeannie?
This is-
Hello from Tucker. Gosh, I think you could do cinnamon roll with so many people. I mean, you can do cinnamon roll and I've seen it with Dwayne Johnson.
Mhm.
You can do it with the guy who voiced I'm Groot. What's his name? Bald guy. The Fast and Furious guy.
Vin
Fast and Furious.
Diesel.
yes.
Yeah, Vin Diesel. He can be a cinnamon roll. I mean, the pacifier, he was a total cinnamon roll. With women, I mean, there's so many you could go with women. I mean, Andy McDowell, for the older crew, I mean, there's some that, gosh, they would just be so good. I'm trying to think who in the younger cast. I mean, Ariana Grande is kind of a cinnamon roll in the sense that she's got that innocence and that sweetness. Maybe not so much entirely in Wicked, but she does have that innocence and sweetness and positivity. And the thing that I think that's cool is when a writer can pull off cinnamon roll without it being Pollyanna.
Mhm.
And you've got the person who may not be world weary, but is worldly wise enough to know bad shit does happen, but we're going to just try to get through, right? We're going to roll with it. And I think you've got some great young actors and actresses. Tom Holland, I think,
Yeah.
can really pull off cinnamon roll.
Yeah.
And maybe even Andrew Garfield, because he's got that sort of, next door kind of thing going. I suspect Chadwick Boseman probably could have pulled it off.
Mhm.
And gosh, there's another guy that Kevin Hart could certainly pull it off.
I think the first one that comes to mind, because in the fandom we often refer to him as a cinnamon roll, is great, and his name just the actor who played Alex Calvert, who played Jack in Superman. And what's funny is they intentionally made him look younger than he is by not letting him have any facial hair. And I saw one of his acting, one of his promo pictures where he had some scruff, and it's like, oh, okay. You're not as young as they made you look. But his character there is very much new to the world and seeing everything through fresh eyes. Although he does turn out to be God in the end. So, spoiler. And I think, well, he takes on the role. It wasn't his to start with. And if you've seen the Korean drama Strong Woman Nam Soon, she has incredible superhuman strength, but she's just this very chipper, happy. Doesn't matter what goes on around her, she is happy. And she just has this infectious humor. And even if she throws a car at somebody, it's all good.
It's all good.
It's really all good. So yeah, I think I agree that it isn't saccharine. It's just kind of a breath of fresh air when you've got somebody who is determined to look for the bright side of things.
I think that's one of the things I really enjoyed about having both Paul Rudd and Tom Holland in the Marvel movies, is they brought that more, innocence, not quite the right word.
Innocence isn't the right word, but yeah, no, that positivity, optimism. I think the optimism.
There you go. That's it, Jamie. An optimism where the others come across as sort of cynical and jaded.
Yeah, I would agree. So where have you written cinnamon rolls in your work, Jamie?
Right. So the thing I am actually, I literally the ink is literally just dried on this contract. So,
Yay.
yeah. Coming in February, I will be putting out my first sapphic romance through Ginger Blue Publishing. And that's what enticed me to sign up for this panel, as a matter of fact. Yes, it's very much a cinnamon romance. It is the book is called, the title of the book is The Powers That Be. It's the first of the Unnatural Powers series. And yes, as I said earlier, it is the romance. It is, centers around the romance between a very sweet, optimistic, paragon of virtue superheroine, just trying to make her way, and her arch nemesis, who's, maniacal mad scientist, and so yeah, that's where I'm doing a lot of this stuff. So you have a lot of things we talked about. You have very much the opposites attract. You have a almost like goth, like cyberpunk, arch villainous is like down with the system, and a sweet sunshiny like golds and silvers and shiny sparkles, heroine that is, all about doing the right thing, and their entanglement and the shenanigans involved, and a lot of that protective instinct sparked both ways. So it was a lot of fun to write. And I've been picked up for a series, so hey, ride this until it goes out. But no, so that's coming out in February, and I'm really happy to really get to indulge on it.
Okay. Dawn.
I've had a couple cinnamon rolls in the first book I published, which was a take on Inferno. There were a lot of men, but one of my favorite characters was Zavi, and even though he was a musician, he was just all cinnamon roll. Like, he was so sweet. He's like, I'm going to do anything for you. So much so that I brought him back for a novella where he kind of gets to win the girl in this one. And then another one of my Irish gods is a cinnamon roll as well. That's just how he has dealt with being eternal. And he didn't know what he was god of for most of his existence. He just kind of had to be. And his reaction to it is to be an absolute cinnamon roll. That's a lot of fun, just like a super fun cinnamon roll. Like, yeah, we're gonna have a blast because I'm immortal. Yay, let's go have fun. And I really enjoyed not making. I think a cinnamon roll can come across as a wimp, and walking a really fine line, because cinnamon rolls can surprise you. They may be dark chocolate inside. They may be orange or something fun like that, and playing with those ideas.
Okay. Ari.
Well, Rachel and I have written a lot of cinnamon roll characters across the years. In A Prince Among Men, Sean, who is the character on the cover here, who is the titular prince in question, is a total cinnamon roll. He's a pediatrician who, gave up his royal heritage and kind of gets, because he wants to be a pediatrician, and he gets dragged back into the whole political situation. And it's the fact that he is such a good, optimistic person that he wins the heart of Bash, who is a very hardened mercenary who is, in it, to do good things, but he's very, very cynical and very, very rough. And he's just kind of, taken by surprise by, Sean. And it's like, Sean is being held prisoner and he's still optimistic and happy. And it's like, okay, things could be worse. And that kind of, takes Bash aback. And then coming in 2025, we have Rocky up here, who is a chef at a resort, and he has been in several of our books. This is the Walker Boys series, and Rocky's been in there since the second book. But he is a total cinnamon roll. He takes care of people. He has to cook for them. He's the kind of person that will, if you're having a bad day, he's going to bake you a cake, because that's who he is. And, food, he's from a very Southern family, and food solves everything. So, yeah, we've got several. And in a lot of our mercenary books, we like to have the mercs, these really, gung-ho hardened fighter guys who just fall in love with the, absolute most, gentle, and we don't write, I don't think I've ever written a cinnamon roll who was a wimp exactly, but they tend to just be a lot more laid back and take things a lot more in stride, where the mercs are the kind of people who it's like they got to make things happen. So that's always a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeannie?
I'd say that's more my take in my books too, is that it's my cinnamon roll characters, especially like in my Witches Walk series, tend to be more sturdy and a little introverted and not wimps, but not showy, not flashy, not the one to step up and go put their hands on their hips and go, I'm here to do this. They just quietly and competently get shit done. And I think that for me, the cinnamon roll plays out with quiet confidence as opposed to the more showy alpha male kind of thing. And I tend to write that fairly regularly, because to me that inner strength is so sexy, and that warmth of self-knowledge and self, they don't have to show off, they don't need to, that sort of self-assurance is super sexy to me. And so that tends to show up both in my Witches Walk series and in, I have a female character in my space adventure with Nancy that she's had a hard go of it. And she's in a minority, a very downtrodden minority, and yet she just keeps plugging away. And so I always think of her kind of as a stalwart cinnamon roll kind of character, because she's not only is the glass half full, she has a glass and it can be refilled. And that's her sort of take on life. And so, yeah, I love writing those kind of characters.
I have a few cinnamon roll characters, and the one that comes to mind first is Russ, who is the wolf. Now he's coming off a bad breakup, so he's not quite as sparkly and shiny as usual, but he's he's a fox. So he's floofy and he's playful and he's got this big floofy tail, and he falls for this grumpy wolf shifter. And so even though Russ is going through some bad times after this breakup, he's the one who kind of gets everybody else, pulls everybody together. He just pesters the wolf into being happy. And like I said, he's just floofy. And yet when the wolf is threatened, he also shows you that fox have teeth and they can defend. And so he's definitely not a wimp, but he's just a very floofy cinnamon roll. Now, as you're writing cinnamon roll, and we know that with romance, there always has to be a happy ending, not a happily ever after, happily for now, but it can't be uncertain. It always has to be happy. But are there certain story arcs or story directions that just don't lend themselves to a cinnamon roll, and certain story arcs that do? Jamie?
Well, I'm gonna say this. I think this is more character arc, but character story. I think character arcs that ruin the cinnamon roll. Like I know some people may really be excited about the corruption of principle and innocence and all that sort of thing, but I think I'm trying to think of a good way to put it, like burning the cinnamon roll, blackening the cinnamon roll. I don't know. I don't think those work, because the you put a cinnamon roll in, I think, and oftentimes we've been talking about this whole inner strength. There's a quiet strength that's shown by standing on principle and optimism and standing by those things. And I think if you're going to ruin that, why have a cinnamon roll in your story if you're just going to destroy it? So I think anything that really, maybe, adding a bit of world wiseness to a particularly innocent one, fine, but like just destroying it, I don't think you gain anything other than like the ire of your reader, and if you do something like that.
Okay, Dawn? And I guess I'll throw into the mix, is there a reason with today's world that we seem to be on a cinnamon roll resurgence?
I think we just look outside of our window.
Calling
I
all
like-
cinnamon rolls.
There's two, like, personally, arcs that I like for cinnamon rolls. One is where they're tested and challenged, but not burnt. You know, you're not bringing them low, but
Mhm.
they question their outlook on life and then are like, nope, I'm right. Um, I like that. I also like him as an anchor for a character to,
Mhm.
you know, maybe break his heart a little bit early on, but then realize, oh, this is what I really need in life, and come back. I think cinnamon rolls make really good like centers of gravity for uh and not necessarily a flightier female, but somebody who just doesn't know where they want to be in life. I like that. And as for why, there's just so much going on, and um, you need someone who's going to be reliable. And I think that's ultimately a cinnamon
Yes.
roll. A cinnamon roll is not going to let you down, and I think that's why they're so appealing right now, because you can trust them. You know, like Jamie said, you know, if they turn out to be this broken ash heap, they're not a cinnamon roll. You know, a cinnamon roll is going to catch you when you fall.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Um, well, exactly what Dawn was saying. There's right now in particular, I think that with all of the ugliness in the world, we need the beauty that the cinnamon roll brings. There's so much ugliness, so much bitterness,
Mhm.
you know, and that's what we need as a counter, I think, in some ways to what's going on outside. Like, you know, in the late situation, I've kind of stopped reading post-apocalyptic because when you're living it, you don't want to read it. So I've kind of given up reading my post-apocalyptic stories, and I have been turning to the comfort reads and the redemption arcs. And cinnamon rolls are perfect to bring into redemption arcs for another character, because they can really serve as the sounding board, or the, you know, when you're holding up a mirror to a character who is damaged, and they look into that and what they want to see, you know, the cinnamon roll can serve as that foil for the very damaged character. And I love using them in that role. It's like, oh my God, I look at what this person has been through, and look at how strong they still are, and look at how optimistic and buoyant, you know, and they're going through their life, and things don't get them down, and I've let this get me down. So, you know, that's, you know, I think both for other MCs and also for the reader, I think that right now a cinnamon roll character is the character that we all need.
Okay, Jeannie.
Well, I agree with what everybody said, but I'd also add that I think partly because of what the world is like right now, a cinnamon roll character really represents acceptance and moral compass. And especially if your other main character is more a more damaged soul or whatever, or has questionable gray sort of choices, they're still accepting that person, but they're saying, look, there is a better way to do this. There's a better way to be. I accept you as who you are, but you can come this way too. And they're not setting out to change them. They're not, it's not that kind of thing. It's more a, hey, this is a good path to be on. I'd love if you joined me. Right. And I think you get that sense of acceptance in all of the cinnamon roll that I've read and enjoy. The sense of acceptance is without strings. It's not, I accept you because you've chosen to be this thing or that thing. I only accept you because you've chosen to be this thing or that thing. I accept you with all of your foibles and flaws because you're pretty darn cool. And I think all of us in the world right now, as Ari said, I'm off the post-apocalyptic too, because I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. It's the current event section now.
Yes, exactly. It's like
Oh,
it's
that's
all been
amazing.
moved to current events. And I think we need the reassurance that there are people out there that will accept us for who we are, and who may have a moral compass for some of these folks who are creating the apocalypse. That they may find someone who goes, hey, you know what? There's a better way to do this. There's a better way to look at people, and a more accepting way to look at people. At least I'm going to cross all my fingers and hope so.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree completely. And I think that there is a great deal of comfort in the cinnamon roll type, that they're going to be there for you. You can depend on them. The world may be crazy, but they are going to be the rock. And I think that's something that we all need, especially nowadays when everything seems to be unmoored, is that rock, that person who's going to be there and who is not going to change to be something else. They're who they say they are, and they're going to stay that way. And I think that's extremely reassuring, especially when the world doesn't seem to be following any rules that anybody can find. So before we wrap this up, I want to give everybody a chance to say where we can find you online. And if you have a new, recent, or upcoming book, tell us about it. Jamie?
Yes. So I'm easy enough to find. Look for JB Garner Writes, pretty much everything. As with almost everyone else I know, I have made the great exodus to Blue Sky. I was already there, but I've been greatly expanding my presence. Blue Sky, Facebook, starting up Instagram, that sort of thing. And my website, jbgarnerwrites.com. I have 2 upcoming releases that might be of special interest. December 17th, which this may already be out by then. My debut novel is Amelia Quantrail, Songs and Sorcery, comes out. It is film noir meets romantasy. And then, as already mentioned, in February, The Powers That Be, my first sapphic romance as Temple Heart, comes out, both being released by Ginger Blue Publishing.
Okay. Dawn?
You can find me at dsdeal.com, and it looks like Dehel, but it's that deal. There are links to all my social media. I too have joined the Blue Sky Exodus. And my most recent story, Mutt Story, was in a collection called Secret Identities with a lot of other really wonderful stories. So you might want to check it out. And I'm currently working on a graphic novel, which ironically is post-apocalyptic, but with a cinnamon roll character. But those take a long time I'm learning, those take a really long time. So I don't know when that will be out, but we are knee deep in creating this new post-apocalyptic world.
Okay. Ari?
You can find me at remckay.com. I'm also on Facebook, way too much. Instant message me, everybody. I like to talk to readers. The latest release that we had was an R.E. McKay story in October, High Strung, that was part of the Road to Rocktoberfest 2024. And coming out in 2025, we will have Healing Hearts, which will be the 4th and probably final Walker Boys story. And sometime in early October will be the sequel to High Strung, which is called Second String, and that will be Road to Rocktoberfest 2025. And undoubtedly there will be a Rachel Angela book or 2 coming out this year as well. And other than that, just look me up at remckay.com.
Okay. Jeannie?
You can find me at jeannieadams.com, and my links to most social media are on there. I still spend a little too much time on the former hellscape. But I too have made the migration to Blue Sky. I'm on, Facebook and Instagram and all those. My latest release is actually a novella in an anthology with Mercedes Lackey called Feuds. And that was out in November of 2024. And my next release will probably be January of 2025. And that's going to be one of the space adventures. Either Nancy will put out a book, or I will. And then the one after that will be February, from whichever one comes first. We're at the race to the finish.
And I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. I'm on all the major social media, including Blue Sky, as one or both of those names. The next book coming out is going to be Thunder Road, which is book 7 in the Badlands series under my Morgan Bryce name. And I'd expect that in late December. Well, folks, thank you so much for being here tonight. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more romance on Continual, so we'll see you online.